It seems like your president has a problem with stairs. Have you been seeing this?
Yeah.
Yeah, the wind is too much for the president of the United States. That's fucking crazy.
Yep. Well, anyways, welcome everyone to the 10K Rum Podcast. My name is Amos Joseph, joined by my co-host Brook Potter, who's in the UK. How's it going, Brook?
Amos, I've got an amazing story to tell. I've been going through some tremendous drama, and I mean stupendous drama, because my downstairs neighbor recently made some rather illicit comments to some underage girls talking about how big his man member is in public. Good heavens. And anyway, this entire event was captured on, I guess, somebody's camera. They put it on Facebook. They reported it to the police. So for the last 24 hours, the police have been in and out of, I live in the same building as him, not the same flat, obviously. They've been banging on my door. They want me to like open the door. And I'm like, fuck you pigs. Where's your warrant? Am I being detained? And, all that good stuff. So it's been a very fascinating few days. Anybody wants to hear that story, of course, they'll have to listen to our raw takes, where I'll be giving away all the spicy details about my run-ins with the police. How are you doing, Amos? Any police interactions in the last few days?
No.
Bitch.
It is raining today.
Oh, that's cool. Not snow, but actual like rain, liquid rain, not hail.
Yes, liquid water.
Wow, I didn't know you still had that out there.
Yeah, so it's a good thing it's my day off today from work, so I don't have to deal with that.
Good.
Other
exciting things to deal with later today.
Yes. Speaking of water.
Ooh, what is that? Yeti?
Yeah. You ever seen these?
No, I haven't. What is that?
It's just water.
Is that a new sponsor for the show?
No. It is a new sponsor from work. Now, got it as a reward from work. Nice cool. Little things. You get some. They're good for keeping water cold or hot or just anything like that.
Yeah, insulated sort of thing. Cool.
Yeah, really durable, sealed really well. Yeah. So,
But yes, we do have some housekeeping to take care of.
We do. Before we get into anything else, real quick, wash your balls.
Wash your balls, guys. The chicks love the clean balls.
If you're joining us for the first time, of course, we do appreciate you watching the show.
And do apologize in advance for offending you.
Like a minute.
Yeah.
But if you want to support the show, do leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe to the show. Check us out on all major podcasting platforms. But check out tacticalsub.com and use coupon code 10KRUM to get 10% off. As well as check out Subscribestar, where you can pledge on a monthly basis for as little as $1 a month to support the show directly at subscribestar.com/Schiller-Preachers. All right. Anyways.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Boy, so what's up with Biden and the wind? Is it like, is he a lightweight? Is that what's going on? He can't quite handle stairs.
Yeah, so
talking about Biden slipping on fucking stairs. So
apparently he's falling a lot. He can't really walk right. Yeah, that's a weird one. Like, there were some fact checkers that were even trying to back him up. Like, oh, it was the wind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still, I mean,
former President Gerald Ford, he fell down the stairs, but I mean, at least he fell down the stairs, right? He slipped and he went all the way down. Yeah, and it wasn't just one slip. Okay, so future generations listening to this who may not be familiar with it, Biden is boarding Air Force One. Yeah, it's Air Force One. And, he salutes the Marine and he starts going up, and then he kind of stumbles, and then he stumbles again. And then he damn near like collapses on the stairs before kind of catching himself and going all the way up. So it was like 3 good side slips that were caught in this thing. And of course, the memosphere has been, losing their shit All of Reddit is up in arms and everybody's like making memes of him and all his slippery dickery. So yeah, it's not a good look, Amos. I don't know what's going on with your president, man. It's kind of low T, if I could say that.
I just think it's just low in general with like any confidence that people have in him. Like he's, slippery.
Well, you could say that about his press secretary, who can't give a fucking straight answer for anything that's going on.
We're gonna have to circle back to that one.
Yeah, we'll have to circle back on that
one. But yeah, it's just he does not inspire much confidence. No. There was something I saw that I could say is at least maybe halfway decent of anything he's done. The Treasury Department has come out with a statement on sanctions against China.
Yeah, they made a statement, but it's I don't think they've really got the political will to enforce it, which is the problem. So
yeah, I didn't look too much into exactly what they're doing, but I'm like, okay, well.
Yeah, sanctions don't come from the Treasury Department, so they can recommend it, but it's got to go through Congress. And let's face it, that Chinese money is flowing strong with the dark side of your Congress and Senate and president. So yeah, that fuckery probably is not gonna happen. In fact, it's so bad that the China's actually making blatant threats about the US and telling y'all, don't mess with us. Iran is the same thing, like we're gonna fuck up your bases and there's nothing you could do about it. Lebanon is like, yeah, fuck you, we're gonna do what we want. Nobody, like, the respect that the US once held is basically been flushed. So yeah, it's I feel worried for the people who actually have the fallout from this. Of course, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and these other places. So supposedly the most popular president in the history of the United States. Yeah, fucking really. I mean, have you been following the border crisis and what's been going on, and Biden giving like $86 million to house these illegal immigrants and migrants?
Too many people held way too long, and too many people getting through too. That's the.
It starts with too many getting across. I think they said there's been more in the first couple of weeks of his presidency than all of last year.
That's the thing, yeah. So too many people getting through, and for those who are getting caught, they're holding them way too long.
Well, they can't process them fast enough, so that's why.
Oh no, I get that, but there's also the problem of like. So I'm looking at it the two ways. Is on one hand, it's already like, oh, this guy's not going to force anything, so we're all going to come across.
And he invited them. He basically kind of said, yeah, come across.
And then the other part is, oh, if we get caught, we're worse off anyways because we're stuck in these, shitty centers and stuff that they have, and we're locked in there way beyond what we're supposed to. Because that's another problem,
correct,
too. Is they're having kids and families that are just locked up in these places that are not really that good. And they're claiming, no, these are great facilities. No, they're not.
No. And the irony of this whole thing is that Trump actually did the right thing in saying, keep them in Mexico while they make their claims so that you can determine whether they're actually asylum seekers or not. But since Biden has basically invited everything south of the Rio Grande to come and migrate to the United States, there's no way to control the flux. So there's no capacity in Mexico. There's no capacity in Texas. $86 million to shove these people into hotels. In fact, it's so bad, Mexico just sent like 5,000 troops to their southern border to keep the influx of these people coming in. So thanks, Biden. Like, as if y'all didn't have enough problems. And they're finally admitting, like, Trump was right. Keep them in those countries while they process them, because once they get across, it's in their interest just to kind of let them go, because they cannot process them fast enough. It's costing more money to keep, house them, feed them, do all of these different things. So now you got it bad on both ends. You can't keep them in Mexico. They can't keep them there. You can't keep them at the border. It's a fucking mess.
Yeah.
Did you hear what's her name, Kamala Harris, when they asked her about if she's going to go and see about the crisis, and she giggled, she laughed, cackled.
Yeah, she's I would assume she's not a very friendly when it comes to that.
No, she doesn't appear to be. Well, I mean, she's one of the most hated politicians in the history of the United States, soon to be president, obviously, as Biden's gaffes get more and more. And even the White House Twitter account has gone and changed it now to the Biden Harris White House, even though she's not in the White House, she's the VP. Hey, that language, they're prepping her, man. She's getting ready to take over. So the most popular president in the history of the United States might get 5 months in office. Yeah, that makes a lot of fucking sense.
I mean, was it POTUS?
It's at White House is the Twitter handle. Hey, Brian. Hey, Red Crusader. Thanks for joining us, guys.
White House.
Yeah, if anybody here, go on Twitter at White House, and you will see.
Oh, the Biden-Harris White House.
Biden-Harris White House. That has never been done before. It is always just the president, because if I'm not mistaken, only the president stays in the White House. I don't think the VP is in the White House. I might be wrong, but it's never been a joint hyphened person living in the White House.
Hyphenated White House.
Yeah, it's never been a hyphenated White House.
Oh no, that's so wrong.
The feminism. It's crazy. Hey, Mictibus, yeah. The VP has a separate. That's what I understood. Has a separate residence.
They have a separate residence, and it's really a separate office altogether.
Correct.
But you got to look. I mean, really. I was talking to someone about VPs. So I think I've talked to you about this. You've seen. Have you ever heard of the John Adams miniseries with Paul Giamatti?
No, I don't think I've seen that. But John Adams, like the founding father, John Adams.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a miniseries on HBO they did a while back where Paul Giamatti plays John Adams. Handful of other like A-list actors that are all in this show. Mm-hmm. Basically, he is he's John Adams, and it kind of starts off right at basically the Boston Massacre. So John Adams witnessed and defended the British soldiers who committed the Boston Massacre, who killed the 5 people and all that.
Right.
Anyways, it leads up to when Washington becomes president and John Adams is his vice president. And the VP back then was no one really.
Had no real power. Had
nothing.
Not
like there's a scene basically that it's the first cabinet meeting.
Yeah.
So Adams is there with the cabinet, like Jefferson, Hamilton, all these guys are having like some sort of dinner.
Yeah.
They're eating, drinking wine, talking about different things. And then Washington stands up and goes, "All right, I'm about to start this meeting. So if you excuse us, Mr. Adams." Just kicks him out.
Please leave.
Leave. We're going to have a meeting right now. And then the rest of his term is basically like Adams is just sitting in Congress.
Overseeing
and not really doing anything, only to break a tie, and he's just bored. Like, this is how, and then now, like, and really, I mean, who would you say really changed the role of the VP?
The most aggressive was probably Theodore Roosevelt. So he was originally a VP, and everybody was like actually kind of terrified. Like people, if the president dies, you get Teddy Roosevelt as the president. But I think he kind of fought to give the presidency at least a little bit of teeth, not real teeth, but I think he was the first one to kind of start to upset that. And then when he ascended to the presidency, he was fantastic.
Would you say Cheney did a big part too?
Right. When it came to the advisory roles, I think in recent history, Dick Cheney George Bush was the president. Dick Cheney was definitely the voice of wisdom and probably speaking a little too much into his ear, right? So a lot of the war policy, and because he was on the board of Halliburton, a lot of that is Cheney. A lot of that came from Dick Cheney.
There's that movie that came out, excuse me, where Christian Bale plays Dick Cheney.
Oh, I did. There, I haven't seen that.
It was obviously a very politically motivated kind of movie.
Sure.
To kind of show like the revolutionary Dick Cheney, like what he did to the VP.
Right.
Anyways.
Yeah, he did. He restructured the Department of Defense with I think it was Donald Rumsfeld at the time. He was very big on private contractors. So a lot of your military influx, a lot of that, the military industrial complex and the corporations getting into it is because of Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks,
And
Cheney.
now, yeah, it's like now, and George W. Bush has the audacity, Jr., has the audacity to criticize Trump over the supposed insurrection. And it's like, you know, you weren't exactly the voice of morality sending Americans into Iraq and Afghanistan, and which you all are still
signing the Patriot Act.
Signing the Patriot Act, and you want to come across and criticize grannies storming into the Capitol with no guns, nobody died. Everybody who died was related to health issues, nothing to do with breaching the borders. There were no guns. The fuck you talking about, man? Shut the fuck up and go back on your ranch, you know? Fucking neocons.
We're still very much stuck in that entire, the Middle East.
yeah. Thanks to Bush, and you know, I mean, his dad tried it first with the Desert Storm, but you know, Kuwait.
I think I looked
invaded.
into it. The U.S. has had some military presence in the Middle East, or at least some interest in it. I think ever since World War II.
Yeah, just after
World War II.
After World War II, when Israel was formed, oil was discovered in Saudi. You guys were front and center.
Yeah, not necessarily like where we are now with it, but there was definitely like the beginnings of that was after World War II, and we've never left there. Like,
no. Well, I mean, yeah, Trump was the first one who was actually kind of negotiating peace, you know, in the Middle East, and he was trying to do his best, but the Pentagon worked against him, Congress worked against him. And as we know, troops are being built up in Syria. It looks like they're going to be moving into Lebanon. Iran is going to make a power play. They've already threatened to bomb some US bases. Oh yeah, it's back to the good old days. Fucking neocons.
Oh my God. Make the best saying Kamala is Hindi for Karen.
And yeah, she is half East Indian. I don't know if she is Hindu though. If she,
what is she? She's East Indian and
Jamaican.
Oh.
Yeah, so that in Trinidad we call that a Dogla mix when you have an African and East Indian mix. So we would call that a Dogla, and you know she's black.
That's not
when
derogatory in any way, is it?
No. It's an accepted term. It's just the mix. So yeah, she's black. She's a woman of color when she has to be, and she's a woman of East Indian descent and Asian when she has to be. So it's the best of both worlds, man. It's like, you know, double oppression points. You know, you can't say anything about this most unpopular vice president person ever who's about to become president because the most popular one is about to go crazy and step down. She's the perfect defense. That's why they wanted her there.
Yeah. I remember when they were going on about how like this is what happens is for every one, like it seems every president gets a little worse in a different way.
Yes.
Because I remember when Obama was office, everyone was like,
hope and change. It's like, oh, thank God we don't have Bush anymore. Yeah.
And then halfway through, there were signs popping up of Bush, you know, miss me yet. You know? And it's like, no, he wasn't really that good either. Like,
no, he wasn't. Obama was
and
the
then
same
they
thing.
show the interactions that Bush and Obama's family had
at
the inauguration. Oh, look at them. They're such good people. No.
Not really. Apparently, Bush Jr.
Bush is painting. That's cool.
Bush Jr. Right. So W and what's Obama's wife's name?
Michelle.
George. Oh, right. No, right. Michelle. Yes.
George.
Yeah. But apparently, yes, George Bush and Michelle have a very close relationship. They're very kind of cuddly with each other and stuff like that. So it's very weird. It's very, very bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, my George jab is the idea that she's a man, you know, in case anybody didn't hear those rumors.
Jesus. Yeah, I've looked into that whole thing. It's a weird one, and I don't try to give it too much.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy.
I put more faith in the water turning the frogs gay.
So, yeah, which is a real thing. You know,
which really did happen.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah, man. Did you hear about the twerking disaster taking place in Miami with spring break?
I know spring break in Miami is getting a little interesting. What's going on with twerking? Was twerking banned?
Yes. All right, so there's two sides to this story, of course, right? The media is the media is trying to play it like this is DeSantis is the governor of Florida. Yeah. So they're playing it up like DeSantis has basically opened up, which he has basically opened up everything, and there are riots and all of this kind of stuff going on because of protests of the lockdowns for whatever reason, and it's all him and he's mismanaging COVID. That's how there's the media is trying to spin it. It had nothing to fucking do with that. It has everything to do with spring break and a bunch of kids who've basically been locked up for a year, and a bunch of young hooligans and others went out to Miami and Florida and these places and basically ran ruckus in all of like the party strips. So it all kind of kicked off when people were going into these bars and these clubs, running up these massive, tabs, these bills, and then just walking out. They weren't paying their bills.
Oh shit.
Right. And it's so prevalent that apparently a lot of the staff actually like have their running shoes on to like go after these people when they do that. Right. And we're talking like thousands of dollars worth of bills. It's a very common thing apparently around this time. So this whole fracas started off with a whole bunch of kids doing that, walking out of a pub or walking out of a bar, and the staff going after them, and it turned into this massive street fight. So that's how it kind of started. And then, of course, when one, it's contagious. If you've ever been to a fight, it just kind of fucking grows. So there've been a couple incidents with a bunch of girls. Some ladies decided to get in on the action. The police came in, and a bunch of women like jumped on the police car and started twerking, and it like smashed in the windows and other things. So absolute mayhem, just total chaos is breaking out. And to be very honest, this is what we can expect given the COVID lockdowns, and the young people have basically been locked away for this kind of length of time and they haven't been given a release.
The partying basically goes a lot harder.
Yeah. It's going to go up to 11 in terms of just the release and the carnage, right? So if more places were open, it probably would have been more distributed. But since Florida is kind of the only one that's fully open, everybody is going there. So that's where all the mayhem is. So yeah, the destructive twerking riots of 2021. It's how exciting.
Twerk sanity.
Twerk-ageddon, it's really getting out of hand. Oh, it's so funny. You Americans are just so funny. Yeah, the twerk apocalypse. Some woman's ass brought the whole house down.
Yeah, I mean, what did you really expect? Like, as soon as things started opening up, there's going to be that influx. Like I told everyone last week.
Yeah.
On Sunday. On Sunday, when we were doing Religion Zero, I was talking about how I went to the Mall of America and went to go just take a walk. So I got some new shoes and I wanted to like walk around somewhere. So I went walking around in the mall, mask on, everything, looking around, and it's packed.
Yeah.
Like more packed than it would have been if it wasn't for COVID. Like it was because
like Christmas.
Yeah.
Like Christmas in the normal times. Yeah, I get it.
And I was surprised. I was like, okay, because I'm looking at some of these stores, and the stores are all like they're all like controlled for occupancy. So they have people at the gate, letting people in, letting people out, but only for the stores. The entire mall is probably at capacity, but everywhere else it's just lines of people going in. So I'm thinking, okay, obviously, so it makes sense. It's kind of weird. They can't enforce who comes in or comes out of this building. They can enforce who comes in and out of stores. I don't know if that's a loophole or something, if it's such a big place that it kind of plays out that way. But I was like, yeah, this is basically that whole everyone just wants to get out and do something. People just want to go somewhere. Because I'm looking around and I'm like feeling like this is a lot of people. Like this.
You forgot how that feels, how to be in a crowd and all that kind of stuff. Did it feel a little socially awkward?
I was definitely feeling myself like more aware of my like kind of just you can kind of feel the room or the building. But it wasn't like unsettling. It was just kind of like this is an old feeling, you know.
How haven't felt that in a while. Wow, we're not alone on this planet. I see Mictobus saying it wasn't spring break, it was something called Freaknik. I don't know. I guess that's like pre-spring break. I don't fucking know.
Something.
I mean, it did get pretty serious. Apparently the SWAT's been called in now and it's like full on riots that are taking place. So yeah, just looking out for those guys out there.
Oh, here's a good one. Brian here in the chat brought up the shooting in Boulder.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. Yeah, if you want to jump on that, because there's also a riot that took place in Bristol in the UK that I also want to touch on.
So, do you know how I found out about this shooting?
How did you find out about the shooting?
Someone who lived in Colorado marked themselves as safe.
Okay. You know, I found out about it.
Huh? Oh.
Jack Snyder on Geeks and Gamers denouncing the channel.
What channel?
That's the Geeks and Gamers. We'll get to that controversy after. But yeah. We'll get to that. But yeah, tell me, your friend is in Colorado. He was close by.
Oh, this was a. We'll just say someone I know. I'll have to tell you who it is.
Right.
Someone we know that lives in Boulder, Colorado, that I haven't known in.
Haven't spoken to in quite some time.
Yes.
Yes, I think I know who it is.
Yeah, it popped up and I was like, oh, they're safe. I'm like, wait, safe from what? And I'm like focused on like, what? And then I saw, and then there was like another, not a classmate, but someone I went to school with who lived out there too.
Yeah.
Because it shows you like, where's the event? Who do you know that lives there? If they've marked themselves safe. So both of them marked themselves safe, but looked it up and it was like, some store guy just went in and shut it up, and they said so far only one person has been found out to be shot.
Okay.
Basically, there was not a lot of information coming out. The cops showed up, took the guy away. It wasn't too serious, but it was big enough to make national news because this is pretty much one of the first major shootings we've seen during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like. The running joke was, the bright side, the kid's not going to school. No shootings. Which is not necessarily good. But it was just like one of those things like, oh yeah.
I mean,
I've never heard about these.
You not that long ago was the Atlanta shooting. Right, where the basically an incel went into a sex parlor to get his groove on. And he ended up shooting.
How long ago was that?
That was a week ago. So he shot 4 Asian women. No, we didn't talk about that because it happened.
Oh, the Asian violence one. Okay.
Right. And then he shot 4 Asian women, 2 Latin women, 1 white woman, and a man. And now there's a swarm of Asian violence taking place and oppression against Asians and, white supremacy and all the buzzwords of kind of falling out. In fact, that was what I meant about Jack Snyder because I got the two mixed up. So he did it for the Atlanta shooting instead.
Okay, but before that though.
Yeah.
Like in terms of violence acting out, like especially during this pandemic,
No, there hasn't been anything for a while in
Like,
the US.
in terms of shootings, I should say.
Correct. No mass shooting
I mean,
events.
we've had like the protests, we've had BLM, we
And
had
people have died at that. Yeah, quite.
yeah, and then there was the whole even the freaking Capitol thing wasn't even as bad as like what's going on right now with some of these shootings are popping up. And
Correct.
really, what I think is happening, why there's all these shootings happening again, because of the weather. I mean, it's the only thing that really makes sense. It's nice enough that people are going out. States are relaxing some restrictions. People are going out. It's nice enough to go out. So there's crowds.
It's not as easy as that. At least with the one in Atlanta, the guy admitted that it was because he has a sex addiction, and it was like a massage parlor. So he's like getting his getting waxed. Yeah, he's getting his happy ending, right? And he turned himself in. And he basically said, this is a temptation. I can't. So he killed these people because they were afflicting him with temptation. So it's kind of religiously motivated kind of thing.
Yeah.
What was his name? Suspected shooter, Robert Aaron Long, 21 years old. I don't know if that has anything to do with the weather. Maybe the one in Colorado, possibly. But yeah, that's definitely. But I mean, are you feeling threatened as an Asian? Are you like, is your white supremacist side like extra oppressive recently? What's going on?
I've been talking about this with some people about the whole Asian thing. I personally don't feel threatened. The big thing that I've been hearing is it's roof Koreans are going to make a comeback.
In fact, of the gun sales that have been taking place in the last week, more than half of them have been Asians, first-time buyers.
Yeah, so that's a whole thing is you cannot oppress a minority that's armed.
Correct. Straight.
I saw this guy, basically some picture of an Asian guy in front of like some Capitol building holding a sign saying minorities don't get oppressed when they're armed.
Damn fucking right.
He had like an AR in his back or something. But yeah, that's the whole thing is the whole thing with oppressing Asians. We're not okay, I'll just say on behalf of Asians.
On behalf of your half Asian self. We
don't go around talking about oppression that much.
No, you don't.
Some do. I will say some.
It's a recently you've been hearing
but
it more vocal.
Not as much as other minority groups in the U.S. Because it's usually kind of, should I say coaxed? No, not coaxed. It's kind of, you kind of have to like bring it out of us to get us to talk about anything. We don't actively seek to like have attention drawn to us about oppression. Now, does oppression happen? Yeah, there's racism that you deal with as an Asian. Yes, there's people that will do that, but that comes from all sides.
Correct.
And they're trying to the thing that they're trying to do is it's turning into a narrative to use against Trump, and it's like no, it's happened before Trump.
Correct.
They're saying like it was like the whole China virus talk, and it's like, no, that didn't really do it.
And to be fair, Trump picked up more minority voters than any other Republican before. So this idea he's racist and all that's just complete, bullshit at this point.
Yeah, it's just painting a really bad picture of the whole thing. But yeah, I saw a TikTok today. It was some video. This is the whole thing. Is just when you're dealing with this oppression, when you have these groups that are screaming out in oppression, the only solution is really just arm yourself if you really feel that unsafe.
There's a difference between like threatened, like you feel unsafe, versus oppression, where you're discriminated against because you don't have enough on your SAT.
And that's the thing. Asians don't really have oppression in that way. There's unsafe. That's a different thing.
Right. That is where the getting armed, Second Amendment, yeah, sure, totally
But
agree.
oppression, when it comes to, if you talk about institutions, you want to talk about, even if you're looking at the data of performance of Asians, we outperform white people.
Yeah, yeah, y'all are, just behind Jews, top of the heap, man. So the Jews are the tip of the spear. You guys come in, and then it's the white people. So
Yeah, it's like, it's your Indian, Chinese, Taiwanese, Korean, Japanese, then white
yeah,
people.
yeah,
So,
yeah. No, complete. I mean, not all. Obviously, some Filipinos and stuff like that. They're cleaning houses, like some Mexicans,
yeah, the thing, make the business leaving a good point in there, saying partially the solution is to stop screaming about oppression and get to work.
which is what the
The
Asians have
victim
done.
mindset is not a part of
Asian,
Chinese culture whatsoever.
yeah,
I remember. So this was the first video I did when we were just before we started doing this podcast. Where I was talking about this guy from Vice. It was like a Korean guy, I think. Worked for Vice. This was back when Vice was just starting to get into the whole kind of woke stuff, and
yeah, SJW
he
stuff.
he did this whole article about how Asians contribute to white supremacy,
I remember that.
and it was talking about how, like, we don't have a history of protesting, we don't have a history of activism per se, like standing up against oppression in the states. And I thought, okay, and really, because of we have accomplished so much and we've gained this position of privilege, that we don't, like, we basically are no different than, like, we are actively part of and contributing to white supremacy. And I was like, no, it's bullshit. That's just no. Why?
That's a
Like,
stretch. Yeah, completely.
it's a difference in culture. Some
Correct.
cultures just have different values. And I think the cultures should definitely, like, use the strengths in their values to be the best that they're known for. Um there's, like, when you look at the different minority groups in the US, like you look at Hispanics.
Mhm.
The big thing you see is, aside from all the negative stereotypes, the positive ones are hardworking,
Yes.
like really, really hardworking. In terms of the manual labor side of hard work, though, they work harder than pretty much any other group in the US, I'd say,
Agreed.
in a lot of ways. When you look at Black people, some of the
Yes.
positive attributes that I've seen there are usually a lot of a lot more. They make a big contribution to the American sort of creative,
Yeah.
the
Music,
arts,
culture.
expression,
Yeah.
culture, because all the other groups in this country tend to, like, are very involved in it. They tend to enjoy the contribution from that.
Yeah.
Um, and I think in this country we need to sort of really get behind what every group has to contribute positively, instead of focusing on trying to make everyone, like, put out all the negative things.
I would say for the most part that has been done. I think
True.
what's happening now is the undoing of that, where so you know I guess the activist left is trying to go back to segregation. So cultural appropriation of some of the best aspects of different cultures, whether it's Mexican food, black jazz, whatever kind of things. It all comes into the idea of the melting pot of the United States, and it all kind of gets mashed together,
Yeah.
which is part of the American culture. That is kind of what makes America America. Now they're trying to undo that. The woke left and the communist left is now trying to be, no, stay in your lane. You're black, you're Hispanic, you're Asian. You guys, this is yours. This belongs to, and they're trying to literally tear the fabric of the society apart, which is what the whole cultural
Because
appropriation and all this other stuff.
the fabric is a tapestry. It's almost like a quilt. Every
Correct.
group, every culture
Yes.
contributes to in terms of the majority of that part of the culture, they contribute to parts of it in their own way.
Correct.
And yet, but the thing that's awesome is not only can you be do sort of the thing that your culture, your group does, you can also do other things. That's why you look at like when you look at a lot of these fields, sectors in business or public and private sectors, what people tend to dominate these fields. It doesn't mean you can't go into that field because it's dominated by one group over another, whether that's race, gender, sex, whatever.
Correct.
But you can actually they can intermingle in whatever way works, as long as you have something to actually, as long as you can excel and contribute.
Yeah, once you have competence and merit in that field, you're accepted regardless of race, gender, sexuality, or anything else.
Yeah.
Which is what America was built on. It's a meritocracy.
But now it's like, no, everything has to be absolutely equal.
Correct. And equal usually means the lowest common denominator.
But what's funny is the more, instead of equality, like some other countries have actually managed to actually pull off, you get this sort of government enforced equity,
right?
That actually does more to destabilize than actually create, a more like a stronger product at the end, a more quality thing. Like I really like when Jordan Peterson talked about the whole thing in, what was it, in like some of these Scandinavian countries that have really pushed hard
for
equality of the sexes.
Yes.
So they really opened up sort of both the sexes to be able to go to school, funding, getting whatever job they want, and then also balancing out kind of like, I'm guessing maybe childcare types things too.
Mm-hmm.
So like moms can actually still have like
they have stay-at-home dad programs.
Yeah. So you're really balancing it out, and guess what happened?
The divide got bigger.
More disparity.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, disparity doesn't mean a bad thing. It's just there was actually more voluntary sort of.
They were free to choose
choices.
Correct.
People actually chose more diverse choices than more equitable choices.
Correct.
It wasn't like, oh, half, in terms of like doctors, it wasn't like half men, half women.
Correct.
Or nurses, half men, half women, or bricklayers.
Correct.
Or because that was the big thing, was no one talks about equality.
Nobody wants to do equality when it comes to sewage workers, construction, mining, oil and gas drilling. They only want equality with like desk jobs and up kind of thing.
Yeah. So what are you saying? Women aren't strong enough to do hard labor jobs? Like that's the thing, is like, it's not that at all. It's just we're built different and we fulfill different roles. No, it's not, that's not the push to like, it's not some crazy like archaic, gender roles, like stay your lane. It's just you can make your own choices, but you also understand there are limitations.
Correct.
There's a balance of the two. I think that's the better way of looking at it. Is it's not to separate, but it's also to understand that there's obviously limits to people.
I mean, the woke left and the communist left absolutely do not understand that point. They have fully bought into blank slate ideology, meaning that there really is no such thing as a man. There really isn't anything as a woman. They're basically the same, and everything is a social construct. Now, this is a theory that's been completely debunked and all this kind of stuff. And a great example of that, of course, is the NBA, right? There's a whole bunch of outcry about why there aren't women in the NBA and it's sexist and this and the other. It's like, no. There is no rule that says a woman cannot play in the NBA. There's no rule. If a woman can make the team, a woman can play on the NBA. For those who don't know, this is the National Basketball Association in the United States. No rule. But you know what ends up happening? They can't make the shots. They cannot qualify.
Well, they cannot keep up. Yeah, they cannot keep up with the standard that the NBA holds for their players. Because when you look, what tends to happen, you take the WNBA champions.
Yes.
And you play them against probably a middling college team.
Yes.
The guys will win.
Correct. In fact, this was actually done with a football team. Like the national soccer team of the United States played an all-boys middle school team and lost. Right?
Every year at my high school, I heard about the 9th grade boys would play against the varsity girls team.
Right. Something like that.
Just it was just for fun. Just for fun.
Yes. Yeah.
The guys would always win.
Exactly. So I mean, not to disparage the women. The women can do what they want, but the idea of this blank slate ideology that there's absolutely no genetic or significant difference between the sexes and it's all a social construct is absolute bullshit. Totally thrashed. And we're seeing, thanks to your president again, with I can't remember what it is, and the transgender issues allowing, trans women into women's sports. We're going to see it again. We're going to see very much so that this blank slate ideology is complete nonsense.
Yeah, I think on one hand, like, the government shouldn't be encouraging or discouraging. I think it should be up to the leagues themselves.
Sure.
That would be the better decision. And I think the leagues themselves would learn fairly quickly if the woke angle is practical or not. Because they would learn right away, oh, we opened the doors and all these trans women came in and they're dominating all these records. Maybe this wasn't the best idea. Maybe, because I think someone at one point I heard say, like, maybe there should be like a special, like a trans women league.
Yeah, but then you'd be admitting that women aren't really women, and they'll shout that down anyway.
Exactly. So then that's the thing. So how do you approach this without like completely messing up?
It's impossible. And the reason the leagues are not going to sort this thing out is if you're a women's football team and you get a trans man, that's your advantage. Why are they going to like cut that off and be like, no, we can't have? No, in fact, the leagues want this. The only people who are going to lose on this are women. Like, biological women are the only losers. So they're not going to get any scholarships. They're not going to get any of the credit. They're not going to break any records and all this other shit. So the women are getting screwed over this nonsense. But the leagues love it, because if you get a 6'8", giant of a man wearing a bra that jumps on the football field and basically plows through everybody else.
I've seen the pictures. I've seen the videos of these players these trans women that will show up and just
decimate the biological women, just annihilate. If that, it's like when you get that one football quarterback on the, like the giant kid who's just the quarterback on the team who's unstoppable. He looks like he's 30, but he's actually 15. It's to your advantage. You as the coach, fuck it. You want that guy. You want that person on your team. So it's very unfortunate, but this ideology, it can't last. It has to collapse, because there's no way this is really, really going to stand. And to bring it back to the conversation about, the oppression of the Asians and what they don't talk about, right? There is violence against Asians in the United States. There's no question that's a thing, but it is such a minuscule portion of related crime in the United States. It barely even registers on any kind of chart. And the number one perpetrator of violence against the Asian community, just as a hint, it's not the white supremacist. That's a crazy idea. No, it's not. Just to say, it's not the whites are attacking the Asians. Generally speaking, there are other demographics that have way more interactions with Asians, especially in some poor communities, and nobody's talking about that. You can't talk about that. This stream would go down in a heartbeat if we start talking about that.
Yeah. The big thing that I was seeing was a majority of a lot of these incidents tend to happen in big cities.
Yes.
And then focused in areas where there's because whether you like it or not, like, communities tend to, like, parts of cities usually. So big cities tend to segregate, just by how they're like there are parts of cities that will segregate, not by any government intervention, but just simply by just how people chose where they wanted to live.
Correct.
So you'll get the concentration of usually racial violence tends to occur at the borders between these communities.
Correct.
So when we're looking at a lot of this Asian violence, it was actually focused in areas where Blacks and Asians intersected in their communities in the cities.
Yes.
Whereas the other incidents of violence that the news is trying to kind of push on everyone tend to be some of these cases among the sea of cases of Asian violence against Asians.
Correct.
They'll pick the one where pretty much the witnesses, the people really want to try to push. Yeah, white supremacy.
Even though he killed a white woman and a man and 2 Latinos, the fact is he shot 4 Asians. Nobody's talking about the other 4 people he killed. They're narrowing it out to try and make the Asian community, adopt this victimhood mindset.
Yeah, the whole problem too is the screaming about racism. It's like, well, do you make it entirely about race, or you make it not about race? Do you understand that this like you said, yeah, that whole thing where there are other people that were shot too?
Yeah.
But we make it about Asians. Yeah. But we can't talk about the race of the shooter.
Correct.
I'm not saying that's necessarily the focus. I'm saying is either go all the way and make it about a race thing, or be honest and say, who did what?
Yeah, we're pushing a narrative.
You're pushing a narrative. You're saying white supremacy. So the in people's mind, they're thinking, oh, white guy.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying now, if it was actually a white guy and you said it was a white guy, then at least you're just honest about it. But tell me about all the other people he shot too.
Yeah, exactly.
That were of other races.
How is it white supremacy?
People would read it and go, oh, so some white guy shot up a bunch of different people.
Correct.
But instead you're painting it as white supremacy shot 4 Asians. You're thinking white guy shot 4 Asians.
Correct.
I mean, what if it was a black guy that shot? What if it was an Asian guy that shot 4 Asians?
In fact, there was a shooting of a black guy shooting 2 Asians a week before that, and you don't hear anything about that. In fact, they had a whole big vigil about stop white supremacy when the shooter was black. Like, what the fuck? They are so pushing this agenda.
It's really just the white supremacy angle that makes no sense.
Correct.
You need to talk about the real problem, which is inner city violence.
Correct.
Which all races in the city are experiencing. Correct. But you want to make it about a race thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And now people who are watching the news, people who don't know what's going on, people who are just taking whatever the news tells them, will basically go, oh, all the white people are shooting us. No, everyone's shooting everyone.
Correct. In the inner cities, and there's I don't know if it's nefarious or what. There is a reason I believe the communist left is trying to switch this narrative. And it has exactly to do with what you said. The Asian culture, much like the Jewish culture, very family-centric, big on education, all of the building blocks you need to be successful in life is kind of adopted as Asian culture, just like it's adopted as Jewish culture. The problem is you'll make other races look bad, right? And what I mean by that is the Latin American crowd will come into the United States illegally, as the case might be. And within 1, maybe 2 generations, they're doing very well, right? The Asians, the same thing. The Asian immigrants.
There's a whole culture around that, but
Asians are the same thing. They come in, they open their little grocery store, and then the kids go off to college and become doctors, lawyers, MBAs, and whatever. They do very well within 1 or 2 generations. The problem is that there are indigenous groups that have been born and raised in the United States for over 3 and 4 generations that are lifetime welfare recipients for generations. And they can't blame it on white supremacy if Asians and Hispanics are coming into the same country and doing well and improving themselves within 1 or 2 generations.
Yeah, because a lot of the anti-Asian, the racism against Asians, they try to bring up the Chinese Exclusion Act.
Yes.
And I go,
which was the thing. Sure. Was it completely a thing? Yep, absolutely.
Still doing better.
Correct. Concentration camps.
Still doing better.
Still doing better. And there are, as I say, there are generations of people who've been in the United States for hundreds of years.
Like it's quite rich when George Takei keeps going on about the Japanese internment camps from his position.
Multi-millionaire, successful actor, gay, with all the oppression points, and he wants to lecture, white supremacy and how the Americans are racist.
Possibly. So there was an audio clip. I think it was him on Howard Stern. Let's just say it doesn't paint a good picture about his relationship with younger men.
Right. I do know what you're talking about. And we don't necessarily have to go down that road.
No, I know. But it's interesting when you get this sort of woke protection. Like, you can go on about oppression all day, you can go on about all these issues. And then when someone actually catches you saying something pretty out there, we'll just say, it kind of gets swept under the rug. Yeah, exactly. So a very similar thing happened with what's his name, Bill Maher, when on his show Politically Incorrect. Oh, I've got it. This might be the police. So hold on, I've got to step away for a second. Can you carry it for a bit? Yes. All right, I'll be right back. Yep. All right. No, for everyone who was just joining us, who joined us before we talked about this, no, Brook is personally not in trouble. It was his neighbor that was having a bit of a, I guess, got caught saying something or something. So, and since Brook is the neighbor, he kind of has to give a statement. So, no, everyone, Brook is not getting arrested. He's not in trouble with the cops. He's a neighbor. So, but let's see here. What do we got going on in the chat? Let's see here. But yeah, he was actually about to bring up Brook was about to bring up Bill Maher back when he had the show Politically Incorrect, where I think it was an episode with David Spade, Sarah Silverman, Bill Maher, of course, and then there was this Japanese guy, I think. And they were talking about racism and jokes and just kind of the politically incorrect nature of comedy, because at the time comedy was still pretty free to be politically incorrect. But they talked about oh, there we go. No, it's not the police. It's not the police, but she needed to open the door, so I had to help. Where are we at? That politically incorrect clip. The one with the Asian guy? The one with the Asian? No, where Bill Maher was defending basically pedophilia with a story between a teacher and a very, very young boy. And excuse me. He basically said it was, it's love is love. Love is love. God. So this was around the time when Milo Yiannopoulos was caught in his scandal. I don't know if you remember that. It wouldn't have been politically incorrect. It would have been real time. Yeah, it might have been one. No. So when Milo Yiannopoulos got caught in his scandal, they found this clip from many years before from Politically Incorrect, where basically the left was love is love. It's pedophilia, it doesn't matter. This kind of very nonchalant approach to the whole situation. So again, this hypocrisy that you see going on. They went after Milo, or when it was kind of one of their own, like George Takei or Bill Maher. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. Trying to catch your breath there? I had to run up and down the stairs a couple of times, yeah. Yeah, I had to come up, get the keys, take it down. What's that? Oh, no, I'm definitely... because I haven't been in the gym. We don't get the gym back until I think April 22nd. So I have like 3 more weeks to go
before I get back to that.
I was touching on the whole thing with politically incorrect. They had an Asian guy on with Sarah Silverman and David Spade.
Right.
They were talking about Asian jokes, and basically Sarah Silverman was defending why she should be free to talk about, to joke about Asians.
Right. Okay.
Like she said something about, she got like a letter for jury duty, and she's like, well, I don't want to go to jury duty. Well, maybe if I said I was a different race or something.
Right.
He goes, no, but that'll be racist. But then I'm not racist. So she's kind of like did this back and forth with the joke, and then kind of said, but then I did that because I'm not racist. Like, but it was very racist.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I don't remember
hanging a lantern on
wording,
it.
But basically, like she's like, but I'm not. She goes, but that's the joke. I'm not actually racist. The joke is so racist to show that I'm not, because I know I am. Like it's it's not like leveling yourself in a way. Like you're kind of going back and forth. And the Asian guy was like, see, and I can't, and that's just offensive. And I could tell when I listened to this, like, hold on, you're not actually offended. You're just saying you're offended.
Just saying you're offended.
It's supposed to be offensive.
Correct.
Because say what you want about Sarah Silverman now. Back then, she was still kind of part of the crowd of comedians that just didn't care.
Sure. I mean, she dressed up as Hitler.
A lot of them weren't racist. They were just,
provocative, shock value.
Humor. And Correct. Even Bill Maher was kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's like if we can't joke about these things, then it's like it's not really comedy anymore. Comedy is Correct. Daring to go into, like, it's kind of like the whole imagery of like the jester with the king. Only Correct. The jester could make fun of the king.
Could make fun of the king. Correct.
Because the king knew that the jester was, he's just fun. He's
exactly
funny. And the people would laugh, kind of chuckle. The king's court would kind of chuckle, but can't laugh.
Yeah, exactly.
It is like the jester, and even now with all the freedom we do have, then even more so should the jester be allowed to criticize. It's not just the king, but the imagery of like the taboo.
Everything, every bad idea, everything is free reign. That it should be on the chopping block.
But that's the thing, is like now you can't do any of that. Not just in comedy, but just in everyday discussion. And
you can't even do it on Twitter. You can't do it on YouTube without being censored. I mean, and to your point, Sarah Silverman recently came out and said she's leaving the Democrat Party because of this cancel culture bullshit. And she basically said these are fucking elites who don't know anything about comedy or anything, and she doesn't want anything to do. Not that she's going to join the Republicans, but she's just done with the Democrat Party. So it's interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah, it's interesting how all this is kind of played out. Comedians there's definitely a huge split among comedians. Because, which I really hope, at least from what I see, there's still more than enough comedians that are just don't give a fuck.
Sure.
That are going to kind of carry the torch on that. Like, there isn't enough, like, comedy as a whole is not going to become overwhelmed by this PC stuff. Like, it's going to come out the other end with enough people to kind of reignite sort of the more irreverent side of comedy.
We hope.
We would hope.
We hope.
Because there's a lot that are like, giving this really like hacky, low quality kind of comedy that's just white people. Because white people. It's like,
I mean, have you ever been to an SJW comedy show?
I've heard some of it. Like, It's now understand what I'm saying, everyone in the chat or you're just listening. I'm not saying you can't make fun of white people, because I've heard some really funny comics talk about like white
Absolutely.
people. It's hilarious. It's just it's comedy that is meant to sort of take down rather than comedy that's meant to bring about fun and
Correct.
humor.
Well, it could do both. It can.
It could if there's a real need for it or cause for it. Like obviously, there's people that get taken down by comedians all the time. They get
Correct.
criticized to hell. I guess what I'm getting at is like sort of this anti-white loathing of like other white people.
Right.
So people are like, "Oh, I hate myself because I'm white."
I don't know how much you see of that in the comedy space. I mean, you and I aren't really in that space.
Trying to figure out how to word this, because I think some people know what I'm talking about when it comes to like sort of the SJW left-leaning comedy that is very much in line with kind of these narratives.
Right. I know what SJW comedy is like, which it's usually shit. But I mean, we're not really moving in the comedy circles that much to really know what it's like on the inside.
True.
Yeah. I mean, did you see the recent tweet that came out about Bill Burr? Because Bill Burr is one of those guys. He doesn't give a shit about this thing. But the tweet went out about his wife, and I actually have it here. 1 second. So this moron.
There was something about him, like he had a hard time pronouncing some names for an award show.
No. Here it is. Well, I'm not suggesting Bill Burr is a racist, a white man. Having a non-white wife, which is true, Bill Burr's wife is black, can sometimes be a sign of racism. So you shouldn't assume someone isn't a racist just because they own a minority sex servant. They may very well have one because they're racist.
Minority sex servant? What?
Let me read it again.
I know, but
he's basically saying Bill Burr he's not saying Bill Burr is a racist. But because he's married to a black woman is not showing that he's not racist, because even racists marry their sex slave minorities.
What the fuck? I mean,
what the fuck?
I mean, the same thing was said about like my upbringing.
Right. The whole
Asian fetish of white people. It's like, no.
Dragon fever.
Yellow fever.
Yeah, it's yellow fever, right? Yeah.
I showed you the one thing, like, you know, I'm standing with Asian people against, you know, violence against Asians. They posted a yellow square.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw it on Twitter. Oh my God.
That's someone, I mean, but from what I found on that, like that was someone that was genuinely trying to, like, you know, empathize.
Yeah.
It was kind of, you know,
they thought they were doing something.
But it is just so blatantly like stupid at that point that it becomes its own joke.
It becomes its own meme at the end.
Yeah, it's almost it's offensive, but no one takes it seriously.
Yeah, it's a meme. It becomes like a dank meme, exactly.
So I'm looking at this and I'm just like, I'm like, I'm not even offended. This is just hilarious because it's just dumb.
Stupid. Yeah, you are so ridiculous, and you think you're helping by posting a yellow square? Like, how myopic are you in your little bubble, man? Like, yay, you go, Ralph.
So I'm like looking at this, and that's the thing about comedy I see is like, it's these crazy situations that are so outlandish that you cannot help but laugh. It's so ridiculous. Yeah. Both in a serious and non-serious sense. This person didn't even know what they were doing. They were just thinking they're helping. And in turn, they make a offensively hilarious meme. So in the other way, when you're actively trying to make a joke and be offensive, it should be taken just as the same.
Yes.
Funny.
Yes. Exactly.
You're not really like, the intent is not to like really hurt anyone. It's just to be funny, or in this case, to not realize that you're funny.
Yeah, to be unironically not funny, but yes, that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah. So, what we're talking about? No.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking. We did a lot. We did racism. We did all these things. You want to discuss the Jews? No, just kidding.
Oh, God damn it.
But if we're gonna go down the I guess the wokeist culture, have you been following the Jack Snyder controversy that's taken over kind of the geekist fandom?
Zack Snyder?
Yeah, Zack Snyder. I keep saying Jack.
I kept saying Jack Snyder, and I was like,
oh shit,
a brother?
No, it's
so Zack Snyder, the Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League.
Yes. So that recently came out. It is, yeah. We got to do a show.
Is it good?
I did see it. Yeah, it's a hell of a lot better than the other cuts, and I think it's definitely fighting for probably the best DC movie that I've seen. It is long; it's 4 hours, but it's a fantastic story, right? Because it is a victory for the fans. And anybody who knows anything about Hollywood and even television to a certain extent, these companies have been shitting on the fandoms of their various franchises for years. We saw it happen with Star Wars.
What makes it the Zack Snyder cut, really?
Because it was okay. So the story behind it was,
it's not a different story, is it?
It's kind of the same, but told in a completely different way. So it's different. It really is a completely different story at the end of the day. I don't want to get into the whole thing. But what for anybody who doesn't know, Zack Snyder was originally co-opted to do the original Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a vision. He wanted to do this long kind of 4-hour type of thing because he wanted to make sure it was actually going to be broken up into 2 movies. There was a part 1 and a part 2. And, because you're introducing a whole bunch of new characters into the show, he needed time to give them to breathe and all this other kinds of stuff. Anyway, midway through the production, his daughter committed suicide and he stepped away from the project. So he basically shot everything, but he was so distraught, he walked away from it, and Warner Brothers brought in Joss Whedon to kind of finish the project. And Joss Whedon is a kind of Marvel, it's a very different feel to what the DCEU was really going for. So we got a whole bunch of reshoots. We got the infamous digital mustache, the bad mustache on Superman, a totally different story, very weird humor. There's a scene, it's not a spoiler at this point, anybody hasn't seen Justice League, the Flash is falling on top of Wonder Woman and all sorts of crazy, wacky things that are going on. Very, very out of place with the DCE.
Right.
And anyway, they were actually instructed they had to keep it under 2 hours of runtime, and this was basically meant to be a 4-hour film. So a lot of the footage got dropped. So anyway, it's released. It's not, it doesn't perform very well. It's very confusing. It's not really something. And then begins the campaign by the fans to release the Snyder Cut. And props to the fans. They were willing to spend the money. They were getting like banners and they were going to conventions with t-shirts and signs, release the Snyder Cut, release the Snyder Cut. And Warner Brothers, in collaboration with HBO Max, I think is the new streaming service from HBO, they decided that they're going to give Zack Snyder, I think $70 million to finish his original vision of the film.
Did they shoot more?
No, he'd already shot pretty much everything. I think he said there's about 5 minutes of reshoots that they did, but he'd already shot the whole thing. It was all kind of there. So he redid it. He recast it. He did it in the IMAX ratio. So it doesn't look letterbox. It actually looks like the 5.
Yeah, I saw the memes about how, in order to maintain Zack Snyder's vision, the movie will be in 4:3, and I was like, what?
but that's the IMAX format. So I think when they do a theatrical release, that is the format that it will go out as, and it's really good. It is worlds better than the one before. You can finally, it actually makes sense. Like, holy shit, this should have been released. Now it would not work in the cinema. It's
4 hours.
Yeah, it will never work in the cinema. There was no studio was ever going to
even Lord of the Rings was really pushing it.
Yeah, that was like a max of 2.5, and then they did the extended cut on DVD that went like 4 hours and shit like that. So even in the cinema, it was like cut to 2.5. Anyway, this is a victory for the fans, right? Just like Sonic the Hedgehog, when that was released, the fans were in uproar about how Sonic looked. They fixed that. This is a championship of the fandom. So it's a great story. It's a fantastic story. Now, the movie aside, Zack Snyder came out and he did a number of promotions before it was released, right? So he jumped on a number of streams and podcasts and other things to talk about the show. And one of them, which is the recent controversy, is Geeks and Gamers. Now, maybe you're not familiar with it. Maybe a lot of our listeners are not familiar with it. But this is a very big kind of, fandom, Hollywood, Dungeons and Dragons, all kind of geekdom, Star Trek. They review all of this stuff. They put out a lot of merchandise. But they shit on Hollywood all the time for the shit that they do. They're not towing the line. They're not trying to pander to the studios. They're telling it as it is. And the head guy, I think his name's Jeremy, doesn't even like Zack Snyder's work. He doesn't like Zack Snyder. I don't know why I keep saying Jack. He doesn't like what he's done with these characters. He doesn't particularly like what he's done with the DCEU, etc. Mm-hmm. But they managed to come up with a collaboration to get Zack Snyder onto Geeks and Gamers to do like a live stream and a fundraiser for, I think, like American Suicide Prevention, something along those. One of these, good charities to raise money. So anyway, long story short, Zack Snyder released the information he was going to jump on Geeks and Gamers a couple of weeks before it was actually scheduled for. And of course, the Twitterverse went crazy because, as I said, Geeks and Gamers are the enemies to the SJW Twitter sphere because all of those people love all the progressive nonsense you see in film, and Geeks and Gamers is, they're holding up for good storytelling and they don't like all of that stuff. So the mob started to put a lot of pressure on the studios and other things. And on the day of the stream, Zack Snyder comes on and he denounces Geeks and Gamers in the middle of the stream as he comes on their stream, right? Ooh. He's like, I just want to say, I'm not associated with Geeks and Gamers and this, that, and the other. And while the head guy is like right fucking there, right? And of course, the Twitter sphere has painted Geeks and Gamers as the far right, alt-right, Yahtzee, hate woman, hate everybody, hate trans, hate this, hate black people, hate, just the toxic fandom. It's all kind of pinnacled in this thing. Never mind, they're like 5 black guys on the panel for Geeks and Gamers, right? They're alt-right, racist, all that kind of stuff. So this has caused quite a stir. Because Geeks and Gamers is kind of the pinnacle of the fandom. These are the people most outspoken about, what the woke culture is doing in entertainment. And they've been painted as this complete, slander from the Twitterverse. And I think a couple articles came out, so they denounced the quartering and Clownfish TV and all this other stuff. And I again, we don't hold Zach accountable because he doesn't really know what's going on. He's just doing whatever the studio tells him to do. But yeah, he went and shit all over it. And now everybody is kind of really, really upset over this entire thing. Because again, it's how are you going to call them alt-right when, the panel is like filled with black guys? But yeah, that's the controversy that's been going on. But you should watch the Justice League Snyder cut and tell me what you think. I'd really be interested to hear what you have to say.
Quite a cut. But yeah, definitely. So I'm not sure what else we want to get into before we wrap up in the next few minutes here.
I'll touch on the chaos that went on in Bristol in the UK.
Yes.
Yeah, I was saving that. So we have a new piece of police legislation that has come out from our Home Secretary, P.T. Patrell. I think that's her name. I can't remember. Basically making protest illegal if your protest is annoying, which of course is completely subjective. So if you have an annoying protest,
okay,
or if you have a protest that disrupts other people's day, you can be arrested, right? So, and I'm not necessarily in favor of this legislation. This legislation is a little draconian. And listen, protests in this environment are kind of the release valve. If you don't give people the ability to protest in this shit, you will get fucking riots, right? There will just be anarchy. So I don't agree with this legislation. Anyway, a number of leftist organizations. So I don't think you all have Extinction Rebellion in the US. We have Extinction Rebellion, and that's kind of an eco-terrorist group, so they're all like, humans are going to go extinct because we're fucking up the environment. So they're rebelling against it. So they fight the corporations and the oil companies and the meat industry. And they're terrorists. They burn shit and do all sorts of stuff, block the roads and other things. So clearly a far leftist organization. All Black Lives of Bristol, which is like a BLM offshoot, they're jumping on this as well. And I think there was one other group, like the Socialist something of the UK, came out in protest of this bill. Now the bill came out with the hashtag Kill the Bill, which kind of is a double entendre, because in the UK a bill is also a policeman. So they're kind of skirting the line of the kind of like the ACAB crowd, all cops are bastards sort of thing. And started off with the protest, and it turned into complete anarchy, where they started burning down cars, police cars. They were climbing up on the police buildings and like kill all. I can't finish that sentence. Killed the bobbies. Just complete anarchy out here in the UK over this bill. Now I agree. I do not agree with this bill at all. But this is complete. This is far left violence. Like the violence that you'd see in Portland that's still going on, that has now reached the shores of the UK. And Bristol is basically a leftist shithole at this point. We're starting to see that kind of violence spill over out here. And of course, the media is completely on board. They have nothing to say about it. It's like, oh yeah, peaceful protest, even though, cops are, they're trying to tip over the cop vans and do all this other kinds of shit. The usual, propaganda that comes out from state media. And yeah, so our Labour leader out here, which is basically the Democrat, he comes out and condemns the violence. Like, oh yeah, that's unacceptable. But at the same time, when there was a BLM protest in London and I think a couple people died and the police were actually injured, he was one of those fuckers that took a knee. He did like his pandering, and he got down on one knee and in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. It's kind of like, just the hypocrisy of, picking and choosing, who's a victim and who gets what. So yeah. We're getting some Portland action out here in the UK. Who would have fucking thought that? Are the riots still going on in Portland? I mean, I know it's a continuous thing.
Some of them, I think. I haven't heard too much. I was gonna say, it's interesting you brought up that bill. It reminds me, did I tell you about the Kentucky bill?
No, I don't think so.
In Kentucky, a bill is going through their legislature that's really interesting. It essentially makes insulting a police officer a misdemeanor.
Really?
So let me be more clear in the wording on that, because
that's what about your First Amendment? I mean, insulting police officers.
So Republicans are actually behind this bill, but some within that Republican legislature are also against it, saying this has First Amendment problems.
Yes.
Let me look up the exact thing here.
Yeah. I mean, that's a thing out here.
Okay, so Senate Bill 211.
Yeah. While you're looking that up,
here we go. The bill kept language making a person guilty of disorderly conduct a Class B misdemeanor if they accost, insult, taunt, or challenge a law enforcement officer with offensive or derisive words, or by gestures or other physical contact that would have a direct tendency to provoke a violent response from the perspective of a reasonable and prudent person. You see how that wording is just so
Ooh,
broad?
that could be fucking anything.
Because it says physical contact, so it's like, okay, obviously, like there
Then
could
you
be
got
something.
assault. Yeah, you don't
you
need
don't
that.
like touch a cop in any way of trying to provoke. But language, really?
Wow.
So really saying, F the police could be, which is a song, could be considered a misdemeanor.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we have laws like that out here already, because it's completely subjective language on a lot of this stuff.
A Class D misdemeanor has consequences of 90 days in jail or a $2,000 fine, I think. I don't know. This is a fine.
Right.
One of the two.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's but I mean that's not going to stand. I mean, your First Amendment, at least you
the
guys have
ACLU came out and said the idea that the legislature would be criminalizing speech in such a way is offensive.
exactly. They
Verbally
would be
challenging police action, even if by insult or offensive language, is the cornerstone of our democracy. Yeah.
Damn right. Damn right.
Like, as much as you can sit there and support police, you still understand, like, yeah, you still have every right to challenge them.
Yeah.
Verbally.
If they sometimes it's warranted. If they fuck up something and you want to say something, yeah, you should open your mouth and say something. So,
because I remember even like back when there was a huge fuss over trying to ban public recordings of police officers.
Right. Yeah, that's not gonna fly.
Yeah, and then
they tried out here too.
Okay. I know we're coming close on time, but I got to tell you about this one. So I found out about this one, and this across the board should get some people thinking. Duluth, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Last September, September 12th, 2 officers were reporting to a domestic disturbance call in an apartment building in Duluth. They arrived. Now, there is a video, so if anyone wants to look this up, look up Duluth officer shooting. You'll find a video. It's body cam footage.
Right.
So in the body cam footage, 2 officers come up to the apartment. First, they do not announce their presence.
Right.
Second, it's a narrow hallway with a little alcove on the side. So one officer is down the hall, seeing the door. The other one comes up to the door and goes off to the side.
Okay.
And they're both like still have not announced their presence.
Well, I mean, they don't have to if it's a no-knock warrant. So
there's no warrant.
Okay.
It was a domestic disturbance call. It was just, hey, there's some noise next door. I think something's going on. So there's no warrant. There's nothing.
Right.
So you actually have to announce your presence if you're about to take any action.
Yes.
So he goes over, and you hear in the body cam footage, you hear 2 like this. No, not even that. Like a like that. Those were doors slamming.
Okay.
So here's the next mistake. Those are not gunshots.
Right.
The cop,
and they opened fire.
Fired to a closed door.
Right.
Because so they later claimed we thought it was gunshots. Well, we don't see any bullets coming out of that door.
Right.
And we know it doesn't sound like a bullet. So he shoots into an apartment. So it's actually because by the building of the apartment, it's a pretty packed in apartment. And he shot through a closed door.
Is that the one where it was the wrong one? They killed us, like that wasn't even the apartment they were supposed to be going into.
No, it was the apartment they were supposed to go to.
Okay.
So no one died. No one died, thankfully.
Okay.
But they shoot twice. You hear the guy in there who is like, hey, stop shooting. And you hear him go, ow, like he's hurt.
Yeah.
And then the cop, the first time the cop shoots 4 times into the closed door.
Okay.
The guy is in there yelling, hey, you hit me. Oh my God. He's freaking out.
Yeah.
You hear someone in the next apartment screaming.
Right.
Then the cop shoots 2 more times.
Holy shit.
Completely, totally, like something's going on there. That's just like, the defense attorney for the county is defending the police officer that's trying to like dismiss the whole thing. It's like, no, 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 no. You didn't announce your presence. You shot through a closed door.
Yeah.
You
Didn't
heard
even know
someone was
who.
in there and you shot them and you shot him again.
Yeah.
You didn't even go in.
So was the guy actually shot? The guy inside?
Yeah, he was shot.
He was shot. Okay.
So what happened then to the body cam footage? So the cop shoots, the 4 waits, hears the guy screaming, shoots again, then runs down the hallway back to his partner.
Right. He doesn't go in?
No.
Fucking hell. It's amateur night at the Apollo, man. Jesus Christ.
These are cops.
Well, I mean, it doesn't mean you don't have rookies that come out and fuck up. So
5 years in the service.
Yeah, that's a pretty messed up scenario.
5
But
years.
yeah,
There wasn't a rookie even at that point.
Yeah, I don't have an explanation for that. But yeah,
And,
that's the kind of thing that should be criticized.
Oh, yeah. And so they just in the last week they started investigating it. Started court proceedings.
Right.
And it's going to go, and then they're not going to go back into court until April. And so with our friend Spike Cohen, I was looking over this for him, and we basically were like, the big problem is, first off, this is a very clear instance of just completely acting out of line. This is not like there's not much, if any, oh, maybe this happened, maybe that happened. You show up, you don't announce your presence, you hear door slamming, you think it's gunshots. You start shooting into a closed door in an apartment. Because now there's collateral damage you have to risk. Because your bullets are not just going to go through that apartment. They're going to go through other people's apartments.
Well, it depends.
That is a real thing. That could,
it's possible if it's like cheaply built. If it's brick.
Because a friend of mine only uses hollow points.
Yeah, that shatter on impact.
Yeah, basic so that, and because he lives in an apartment, so that he can limit collateral damage.
Yeah, I get it. It depends on what the building is made of. So if it's cheap construction, yeah, it could tear through walls.
From what I've seen, it was probably one of those old apartment buildings that were built like in the 70s or 80s.
I don't know what the building code in the US would be.
Walls are not. I mean, for how clearly you could hear people like screaming in that building when he was shooting,
it's probably not very thick. Yeah, I doubt that. Yeah.
But anyway, either way, an apartment, you never shoot in an apartment, especially not through a freaking closed door, unless you absolutely have to shoot. But there's no reason to shoot. So the big criticism was basically just because this was such a very clear incident. Why is it that we've waited so long? Now, granted, this cop is off duty, but he hasn't had any. He's not in any holding cell. He's not being questioned or anything yet. It's just been kind of essentially covered until now, until court.
Right.
Because anyone else doing that, at least you're locked up for a certain amount of time before they can figure out what happened. You're not kind of just let to go do whatever you want, let free, so to speak.
I don't know if that's necessarily true.
Well, in the U.S., if you're caught shooting someone with no probable cause, no reason, you're arrested.
Yeah, but if you're a policeman and you do that, that they're.
But if you went against every single rule for what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, no, you can't hold him there until all the evidence comes in. That's what the internal investigation has to determine. So remember, it's innocent until proven guilty. You don't lock them up first and then, come out with all the stuff after.
No, it's not but so even if a regular person did that.
Well, a regular person could, because they don't have the protection of the police. The police have their internal investigation.
This is the thing. This is the thing that people have tried to criticize is how much should police really be protected?
Well, they need a certain amount
when
of
protection. When there's a clear case like this. Granted, there are cases that you need to look into more. I get that, but when it's something like this,
innocent until proven guilty. You can't judge it before it's time. Habeas corpus. You got to give the guy his day in court. And as I say, just like there's military tribunals for when things fuck up with the military, it's all kind of handled internally. The police have they're supposed to have their own checks and balances. Not saying that's not corrupt, and I'm not saying the politicians ain't, doing their part.
This is the thing this is what is a problem, because on one hand it can protect, situations like where police are just in tough spots.
Yeah.
I get that. They have to make a decision. They maybe didn't make the best decision.
Yeah, they could make the wrong one. Correct.
But this is just straight up like, what were you like?
No, you got to wait with the same prudence as everything else. And if that's the case, hopefully the system will work, and yeah, he'll get suspended without pay or whatever, and he'll be thrown in jail. Whatever is the warranted response for such a situation.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. I mean, I'm not a fan of police. I was speaking to somebody recently about this whole thing. Never talk to the police, right? The police, the only reason they're asking you questions is because they're looking for something to arrest you for. They're not trying to figure out how your day is and, do they really need to know where you're going? No, they're trying to fuck you over. So don't talk to the police. So I don't have no big love affair for the police, but I do understand it is a very, very gray area of society, that it's a necessary evil in some ways.
Maybe it's just the U.S. It kind of becomes it's a different thing in the U.S., I think.
No, we have it worse out here, because our police can arrest you for words and thoughts and jokes.
No, I get that. That's the power. I'm saying is like, that's the power the police are given to enforce. I'm talking about enforcement between officers. So, in sort of the corruption among officers themselves, because the laws would be like, the laws that your police are enforcing have to do with your legislators.
The problem with our police is that they don't actually know the laws. So, like recently, all of the protests that we've had in London, a lot of people got arrested for supposedly like breaching the COVID legislation, and all of it's been thrown out of the courts. And it's like, no.
So what happened to those people? They got let go?
Yeah. They've all been, everybody who's been arrested, like over 12,000 people in the space of this lockdown who've been fined, arrested at protests and other things like that. All of that has been thrown out, which means they don't even understand what they're doing. They're making shit up on the streets just to get their numbers, like just to get the so many arrests or whatever quotas that they have to do.
Yeah, the U.S. definitely has done some stuff like that too.
Yeah, of course. And once you have quotas in place, they look for something. So in my story,
I got caught up in pretty much a revenue grab.
Oh yeah, that happens
during
as well.
COVID.
In Trinidad, it's Christmas time when the police are suddenly starting to time the cars speeding, because they need to make money for Christmas. So
they're getting a real revenue dip during COVID when they start parking out at freeway ramps, trying to catch people for expired tabs.
Yeah.
It's just
so it's a money grab. It's complete hustle. I mean, we could share some police stories probably in the next show.
We're kind of at the end here. So
yeah.
Anyways, once again, everyone, thank you for joining us. Now, of course, if you want to support the show, if you did enjoy this, do check out other episodes. Check us out on all your major podcasting platforms. But you can also support us on tacticalsoap.com with the best soap for your balls.
Wash your balls, guys.
Go to tacticalsoap.com, use the coupon code 10KRUM to get 10% off, or go to subscribestar.com/shitload-preachers, where you can pledge to the show for as little as $1 a month, and that supports the show directly. For $5 a month, you can be a part of the Raw Take series, where Brooke and I do little videos of talking, let's just say, more frankly than we would on the show.
Well said.
Usually it's about stuff we're going on in our lives, escapades, crazy weekend benders.
Yeah, bitches and hoes and coke and all that good stuff.
Hookers and blackjack. So we do appreciate everyone for joining us. Of course, we will be on next week, same time, same place. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks for watching, guys.